Inside of the concentration camps, the SS would make the lives of prisoners a misery on a daily basis. As well as the beatings and torture, there were many experiments which were conducted on inmates, which were considered completely barbaric. Doctors such as Joseph Mengele, the Angel of Death, became notorious for their experiments, which often resulted in the deaths of the subjects. One of the cruelest realities in the world is that many people are dying of thirst each day in dehydration, but the world is covered in oceans and water that is deadly to drink. Seawater consumption can be deadly, but inside of the concentration camps, the Nazis took part in a number of disgusting experiments to push the limits of the human body, using seawater. The Nazis were trying to see if they could improve the conditions for their soldiers and improve their chances of winning the war. Many prisoners during the experiments would be given wounds and so on which were infected, and then different treatment and agents would be introduced to see if they got better. But of course these were performed in barbaric conditions and often resulted in the deaths of prisoners. But why did they use seawater? Join us today as we look at the horrific seawater torture of Dachau, and remember to support our channel as always. Please make sure to subscribe. As humans, we are reliant on fresh water to deal with the salt in our bodies and to flush it out, and the salt content of the sea is too high for our bodies to deal with. Consuming large amounts of seawater is of course very dangerous, but the Germans and the Nazi SS doctors would experiment on many prisoners in the concentration camps using it. The Nazis became fascinated with trying to find ways to make seawater drinkable, but this obsession would be an excuse to treat prisoners inside of concentration camps terribly, and to make them incredibly ill. One SS doctor who performed these experiments was Hans Eppinger, who had been a member of the Nazi Party from 1937. Interestingly, he had actually been to Moscow to treat Joseph Stalin a year before. However, like a number of doctors, he was dispatched to different concentration camps to experiment on the prisoners. In 1944, a group of 90 Romani prisoners from Dachau concentration camp had been selected for saltwater experiments. This was led by Dr. Hans Eppinger, and from July to September 1944, experiments at Dachau took place using these inmates. The plan was to try and make the seawater drinkable, and the victims were subjected to a horrific ordeal. They were deprived of all food, and the only form of food or drink they received was seawater, which had been filtered. The 90 Romani prisoners were starved, and they were made incredibly sick by the seawater they were consuming. They became very dehydrated, and were so dehydrated they resorted to licking the freshly mopped floors to try and get any form of drinkable water or liquid. An observer of the experiments explained what he saw, and he said that whilst he was forced to work on the medical experiment stations, he learned what some of the experiments were about. He said that the victims had trouble eating and would even lick old floor rags. He claimed that he could not stop what was happening, but as he was tasked to work in the facility, he knew that any words he spoke out about it could result in his death. Some prisoners who did catch glimpses or witness specific experiments were often sent to the gas chambers to protect what was happening and to prevent the truth getting out. Regarding the saltwater experiments, many of the subjects died from their treatment. Drinking the saltwater was causing their bodies to become very thirsty and to urinate to excess, and this was the body's attempt to rebalance itself. But there was no sustenance for the prisoners to replenish the fluids they were losing, and because of this, a number of prisoners suffered from organ failure and damage, and some subsequently died inside the experiment. In December 1946, there was a war crimes trial known as the Doctors' Trial that took place, and 23 doctors were found to have been involved in the experiments, but also the seawater crimes. 16 of these were found guilty, and 7 of them were executed 2 years later for this. But the saltwater torture of Dachau was a tragic and horrific ordeal for many prisoners to go through. It was a death sentence, but a very long and prolonged painful death for the inmate. Saltwater torture is today a forgotten part of the concentration camps, and the victims of this deserve to be remembered. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.